One of the things that I found very interesting, if you want to look at the ultimate test of mental toughness, it's probably on the field of battle. If every time you hit a bad shot in golf, someone died, you might have a little different view of what's happening. Or if you lose a match, you're going to lose a limb or something. I looked at the history of military training from the very beginning, the earliest days of warfare,
Mm.
all the way to the present. And even, you far back as the Vikings, and then certainly all the academy, the Naval Academy, the West Point, the Air Force Academy, all of them, even all the way back into the martial arts, Bushido, every single warrior culture had an honor code. And that honor code was about moral and ethical character. It's about you have to be an honorable warrior. You have to have somehow a connection to other human beings. It makes what you do not just a serial killer, that you are a good person and you're operating according to a certain set of standards. And the military wouldn't have that if it weren't necessary. And that also, I think, is another kind of way of looking at this notion of mental toughness, that there is a link to your treatment of other people in this combat arena and how you deal with others, how you talk about others, how you carve a sense of identity in a positive way, that you believe you are still a good person, but you are an unbelievable fierce competitor. Monica Seles was about as fierce a competitor that I've ever been around. And when she would beat someone 6-0, 6-0, or 6-1, she would come to the net and she would start to cry because she made them feel so bad. But she was driven to do the best she could and to bring out the best that she could in others. But it actually was very hard for her because she felt so deeply about the impact of what she just did on her opponent.
Yeah, man. Do you know so when I did my PhD, I was originally it was around sportsmanship, and I wanted to try and see what that kind of association between mental toughness was. And I wasn't really able to nail a theoretical model for it, but you've got me back on back onto that now, Jim. Many years later, I'm thinking I'm going to pick that up again now.
Yeah, that did not come easily for me. I had to go through a million combinations and permutations, and I was kind of reluctant to go there because I'd never had any training. No one ever, as a psychologist, who the hell gets into the character space?
Mm.
And I had to pinch myself, and I'm looking at kindness and honesty and integrity. I'm going, what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be helping people win.
Well, amongst our many activities, Jim, there's one interesting loop in that you talked about your early beginnings, starting in the world of mental health, which we now call well-being. Um, I would say about 30% of our work now is in the field of well-being.
Mm.
And well, what you might see is that it's coming round full circle, and people are beginning to understand that mental toughness has a role to play in well-being, particularly if you're self-aware about the aspects of your mental toughness that give you a problem or can create a problem for you.
It's a little embarrassing when we put all the data together and we started crunching all these numbers. It struck me that we were trying to help people achieve unbelievable things. That's why people would come to us, to become better performers in whatever arena they were in. And what we came to realize is that we were in the health business.
Yeah.
All we were doing is helping them get healthier as human beings. And health is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And the healthier they got, the better they handled competition. So mental toughness, in a sense, is kind of this collective understanding of ultimate health. Mm-hmm. That if you're really going to be able to go into the crucible of pressure and hold up, not fall apart, not demonize yourself or your opponents, it's a measure of health. Even resilience is a measure of health in some total capacity. So, and that is why Johnson & Johnson wanted to buy us because we put the data together that showed that we were in the health business and they were in the health business and they wanted in the performance business because they wanted all their employees, their doctors, their nurses, their pharmacists to perform better. So they would give them this training and help them perform better. So health and performance are part of the same coin. And I had never understood that ever.
That's really interesting because our colleague, Peter Clough, who developed the original 4Cs model, often talks about performance and well-being being flip sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just said.
And it is. And it is. We've changed. I went into mental health, but it is, you're right, it's mental well-being. And that is also a multidimensional construct. It's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, and it's spiritual. And if you look at mental health from one dimension, you're going to miss it. This is a fully integrated system. And that's the problem with medicine today, is that it is so specialized that if you come in with one thing and it's outside their specialty, they have no idea. It's very, very hard to find someone who understands how the system works as a totality. And that is how we have to look at everything. It's through the lens of the whole person.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose you could always say that when you're looking at performance and well-being, they're both about managing stressors. And mental health is about how you deal with the stressors of life. Some people can't, and some people struggle. Performance is all about setting yourself some special stressors. You set yourself some special challenges, where they're just bringing in another form of stress. You've got to learn to deal with it.
I wrote a book called Stress for Success.
Right.
And everybody thought I duly lost my mind because I said stress is an indispensable part. All the hormones of stress are the hormones of life.
Yeah.
And then I got into this oscillatory concept of stress and recovery. And I said, if I take all the stress out of your life, if I fill your life with marshmallows and pillows, one day all you'll be able to handle is marshmallows and pillows. Your capacity will be gone, and the marshmallows will not be sweet enough, and the pillows will not be soft enough, and you will be ill-equipped for life. Thank God stress is in your life. All you have to do is balance it with recovery. But stress is the stimulus for all growth, and recovery occurs. And growth occurs during recovery, and that is the pulse of life.
That's very interesting in the context of COVID. In the UK, I don't know whether the same happened in the States, but there was a huge amount of protection given for people. They were allowed to not work, or they could work from home. They'd be paid 80% of their salary, so that left some people better off. We're now registering the highest level of mental health problems we've ever registered. And some people are arguing that it's a consequence.
If you don't have stress in your life, you're going to be so weak you can't handle it.
Yeah.
If you spend too much time at the beach, you won't be able to go back into the storm. If you spend too much time in the storm and never get recovery, then you're going to have serious problems. But it's in that oscillation. I say, if you want to have a big life, you got to be a stress seeker. But you also have to balance it appropriately with recovery. And the fitter you are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, the less recovery you need. But let me tell you what you do need to survive is stress. And the worst, most dangerous time is when people retire thinking they're going to get away from immense stress. And within 6 months, their life turns upside down. And if they don't find something to get stressed about, they are likely going to check out.
They are, John. That's why I keep going.
That's why Doug keeps going. Yeah, I always ask him why he keeps working. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Because we all begin the day with a cortisol awakening response, and if I won a huge amount of money and paid to have every stress in my life taken away tomorrow, do you know what? 10 minutes after I wake up, I'm still going to have a cortisol awakening response. I'm still going to have a spike of cortisol. I'm still going to experience on a kind of hormonal level some stress that I'm going to have to try and find something to do with.
Is this all there is? Is there more pleasure? Why am I here? What am I doing? if you get up in the morning and you don't have any reason to exist, nothing to fight for, chaos reigns. It's like entropy in the universe with all energy systems,
Mm.
and the human system is a complex energy system. And the ordering principle in the chaos of our energy is purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, and as soon as you set a purpose, all of a sudden you got stress. I got to start working for this stuff. Now stress is all over and you got to chase it. You've got to chase to have a big life, but you also have to have recovery.
Uh, and just on that bit, Jim, the recovery part, is there is there any advice you can offer around whether it's support or strategies to to achieve the most growth through that recovery?
Well, a recovery occurs multidimensionally as well. So physical recovery involves, sleep, number one.
Mm.
If your sleep is compromised, it's going to affect your ability to manage stress in the real world. Strategic naps, your diet, your nutrition, your frequency of meals. And that's why athletes are very careful about their training table as far as what they're eating and the frequency of their meals. And everything from massage to exercise, the more the fitter you are physically, the faster you can recover. And there's all kinds of meditations that are, more Tai Chi where you're moving, hot yoga. A lot of things actually become a form of physical recovery for those, let's say, corporate athletes that are not moving all day. You
Mm.
want to do something that is the opposite of what you're doing. So if you're walking a lot, you may want to sit or you want to jog but there's physical recovery and you have to pair that with whatever your stresses are. And then emotion recovery is trying to get anything that will allow you to move from a toxic negative place to a much more positive and optimistic kind of positive space. So it could be anything from laughter, it could be being with family and having fun, anything that will cause the sense of fun to occur and elevate your mood, get you recovery from the toxicity of a lot of the stress that may be mounting in your life, from everything from finances to interpersonal relationships at your work or in your family with your spouse. Anything that allows you to get to a positive place for a period of time is a form of emotional recovery. Mental recovery is actually just changing channels, thinking about something totally different, allowing those neurons that have been working so hard to actually cool, if you will. That's metaphorical. They don't really cool, but the restoration, and actually do something completely different that changes the way in which your brain is processing information. And spiritually is to go back to why you're here, what's your ultimate mission in life, what are your deepest values, your goals. You're reconnecting to why you're here and what really matters to you in life. And that's a renewal. So having opportunities to go in and do that on a regular basis keeps you in balance. And some exercises cut across multiple domains, such as, let's say you're a father that has a couple sons and you're very stressed out because you're always disengaged when you come home. You're angry, you're tired, you really can't connect with them. So you decide to get up at 4 a.m, which is the only time that you can, and you start working out, and you're physically exercising so that you will have more energy when you come home at night and can stay awake longer, and actually be fully engaged with them because you're not as exhausted. You've actually worked physically to expand your capacity for expending energy. And it becomes a spiritual practice. So it actually changes you emotionally, it changes you physically, changes your mental outlook, and it's a spiritual practice because now you're aligning your practice of getting up and working out. You're not working out to be buff, you're working out to be a better father who's more fully engaged. And that will keep you on that exercise bike.
That's a great example. That I need to try. I need to find something to keep me on that exercise bike. So,
Well, Jim, in a sense, I'm the odd one out here because you're both psychologists, and that's your background. My background is that I was actually trained as an economist,
Oh,
and yeah, but
you're a numbers
my
guy.
interest. Sorry.
You're a numbers guy.
Well, no, a kind of big picture thinker. And I think that's what I share with
Okay,
both of you,
okay.
because I was fascinated by economics as a solution for the world's problems. You know, the idea that you could create wealth in its wider sense, not just money, would be the way that you improved the lot for every person on the planet.
Right.
Eventually, I began to realize that that wasn't happening because people were the confounding factor. And people didn't quite
Hmm.
understand that this is the purpose they should be aiming at. So my view about the world is a big picture view, and I guess a lot of our work now is heading towards the development of young people. Now, I know that a lot of athletes that you've worked with are young people, but I'm talking about kids in high school and maybe even kids earlier than that, because I hear a lot from parents, and parents say that's what they want to develop in their children. They want to develop that ability to be able to deal with all of life's stressors and still come out smiling. But it's a hell of a struggle to get the education systems to pay attention to it because they're so focused on subjects and topics.
Yeah, they all feed the achievement addiction.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's all about your scores and how you did and are you going to get into the best universities and everything else. And I've looked at this in many ways, and I feel like our only hope, and I'm not looking at it so much through the eyes of an economist, but more through the eyes of someone who's concerned about mankind in a
Mm.
more general sense. And Sapiens Reinvented, I have a 20-week training program where I believe it is the only place that we can save the day, where parents and coaches and teachers actually start working with training. It's almost like self-domestication away from this propensity for aggression and violence to solve issues and to find ways to connect with others in a really positive way. It's in Africa, it's called Ubuntu. And it's a community of people coming together and trying to eliminate the sense of we are in this tribe and you're in that tribe and that this is Germany and all the different, races are all distinct and that we are the supreme one, to try to help young kids to see that diversity is to be celebrated in our
Mm.
species and honored, and that so I have 20 weeks of training according to my understandings and my adherence to neuropsychology and cognitive psychology. And I have a bunch of people, a bunch of parents and everyone doing it. And it's had a profound effect on their children and how they actually um, deal with stress, how they deal with crisis, with conflict. And that was my purpose, but it's probably going to be read by only a few people because it's not a book. It's one of those immersions. We want something that it makes us feel really happy right away. We don't want to look at the
Mm.
ugly side of humanity, but the ugly side of humanity is there and we must confront it. And then if we're going to do anything about it, we got to do it quickly because our species is in peril.
Mm.
Yeah, I kind of buy that. And again, this is an area where politics interferes with the ideas and the ability to do things. We are
Absolutely.
making a little bit of progress, and we've actually been working with somebody in the States who's been doing something quite clever. He's been working with teenagers to introduce the idea of mental toughness to them so that they can go and take it to 6, 7, 8 year olds.
I
And
think
so
it's
he's given them
fantastic.
a purpose.
We
And
are we are doing that. It's called the Youth Performance Institute, taken from the Human Performance Institute. We're using youth to mentor youth on all these principles.
right.
I've spent the last 7 years since I left the Human Performance Institute applying all the lessons to youth and all the issues of mental toughness, oscillation, purpose, and we're recruiting kids who are kind of special. They're very articulate. They go on, this right now we have 78,000 followers worldwide, young kids who are tutoring other kids in
Wow.
in all these lessons. And to me, the answer is with youth. And if you don't have that, I don't know where we turn, because the parents just can't do it. And our society is just the hardening of the categories. You can't change much. The brains of young people are very plastic and very malleable. Our brains are almost fully solid.
Yeah. No, I think that's sounds an amazing initiative that you have there with real scale to it as well. So I'd be fascinated to see how that goes.
Well, I think we will keep a very close eye on it. We've been working predominantly in the UK, but we're beginning to do a little bit of work in the Middle East. Well, more work in the Middle East and some in Europe. So we will definitely keep an eye on what you're doing, Jim.
Yeah, I
And
think we're on the same mission.
yeah,
Same mission exactly. We're trying to make a difference, and with whatever time I have left, I'm just pushing the envelope as hard as I can, just like you guys are.
yeah.
I don't know
Well, we're doing our best.
how much wick is left on my candle, but I'm going to the end.
You're looking good, Jim. You're looking
Producing.
good.
But I've appreciated the time with both of you. You obviously have done a lot of work, and I like the direction both of you are going, and it's been really fun chatting with both of you. Thank you.
Well, I hope we can keep a conversation going in some way. I really, really enjoyed having a conversation with you.
I'm just a learner like you are. I'm trying to figure it out, and the more I know, the more I realize I don't know anything.
Absolutely.
That's it. The moment you think you've got it cracked, that's the time to
And
worry.
when you think you've got it, boy, hold on to your shorts, because you're wrong.
It's a great
Great
quote on
stuff.
which to finish.
Right. Thanks a million.